I'm Scott Lucas. This is today's EAWorldView on Iran. The Supreme Leader is very worried about the economy. Earlier this week, the Supreme Leader put out a call for a resistance economy, 13 measures to increase Iranian production, exports, lower the taxation burden, and get people back to work. Now, this in itself is not new. The slogan resistance economy has been used by the Supreme Leader since the summer of 2012 to explain how Iran will triumph over any attempts by the West to sanction it out of existence. What is new is that behind the rhetoric, the Supreme Leader is actually very, very worried that not just because of sanctions, but because of mismanagement, he is overseeing an Iranian economy that is in serious trouble. How do we know that? Well, we can find it out by reading between the lines of a meeting that the Supreme Leader had with the three heads of government on Tuesday. He told the President, Hassan Rouhani, the Speaker of Parliament, and the head of Judiciary that they needed to get themselves together, cooperate, make sure that all these measures, recommended by a body called the Expediency Council, were implemented as soon as possible. The Supreme Leader said, by doing this, you will fulfill the greatness of the Iranian people while addressing their problems. It's the addressing their problems bit that's the key point here. Here's a piece of information that most people don't know. Last September, Hassan Rouhani, newly elected as president, asked for a special meeting with the Supreme Leader. He handed Ayatollah Khamenei a dossier. That dossier had a series of statistics and observations about the Iranian economy. It said that unemployment was continuing to increase, that inflation was more than 40%, that the currency, while settled in comparison with 2012, was still not stable, and that Iran would continue to pay a greater and greater price because of sanctions, failing to increase productivity, and indeed declining as an economy. The Supreme Leader took that report seriously enough that he endorsed Rouhani's effort to go into nuclear talks with the 5+1 powers, including the United States, talks that have now yielded an interim agreement. But the story doesn't stop there. The Iranian economy in 2013 declined 5.4%. This week, a senior presidential advisor said that the rate of decline this year, in 2014, was 2%. And the Rouhani government said that its projection, in other words, its hope, would be that by March 2015, the Iranian economy would be close to zero growth. That's right. The best case scenario for the government in current conditions is not any growth at all, but just hoping that there isn't a further contraction in Iran's economic state of affairs. Now, some of those who look at this will immediately snap, this is great. Sanctions are working. We've got to keep the sanctions on to bring the Iranians to their knees. I don't want to get into that at this moment. What's more important is not what people want to make politically out of this, but to recognize the state of affairs. The Supreme Leader, for all his bluster, knows that he has a serious economic situation on his hands. He knows that in part he will have to support nuclear talks to address this, but he also knows that in part he is going to have to work with his representatives in government, including his president, to remedy years of mismanagement. Even if the nuclear talks succeed, there's no guarantee that that broader effort will. And that means that the Iranian economic crisis is likely to continue for some time. I'm Scott Lucas. This is EA's Worldview on Iran for today.